Swayam Prabha. Digital India. Educated India.
Hello and welcome friends. This is 20th and concluding lecture in this course, Political Parties and Party System in India. And we are going to discuss basically the overview of this course and also the prospect of political parties in India and its implication on Indian democracy. So, in this lecture today we will have a kind of revisit to some of the key themes or the ideas that we have discussed throughout this course, and also in the later part we will discuss some of the features and the challenges that political parties in contemporary India are facing, and what are the possible implication of such challenges on Indian democracy as a whole. So, these are some of the things that we will discuss in this concluding lecture on this course on political parties and party system in India. Party system in India has evolved, as we have discussed in many previous lecture, from a one party dominant system to a vibrant and highly competitive multi-party system. So, for first few decades it was the Congress party, even when there was the presence of many other parties like socialist, communist and other regional parties, which dominated the party system and party politics in India. So, from that one party dominant party system to now a vibrant and highly competitive multi-party system in India, there has been a appreciative or a radical transition in Indian party system and its evolution from a one party dominant to a multi-party system, and therefore it is very difficult to characterize Indian party system in the conventional classification of party system in India, such as bipolar, multi-party or a single party rule. However, in contemporary phase of the evolution of party system in India, there are many scholars who have argued that there are again a new phase which is emerging, where BJP is acquiring a dominant or hegemonic status, particularly after 2014 and 2019 election. So, one of the salient feature of party system in India, it is still evolving, and it has evolved from a one party dominant to a multi-party system, and now again there is a turn towards a one party dominant system, where BJP is now increasingly becoming the dominant or the hegemonic party in its contemporary phase, particularly after the election of 2014 and 2019, where it has won majority in the parliament for the first time in 30 years. So, that shows the dynamic nature of Indian party system, which is still evolving. So, even in the contemporary phase, where BJP remains the dominant party, even then there are many states or regional parties which are a strong regional force, which was non-existent during the first phase of party system in India. Political parties are modern institution, which we have discussed that it is not something which was always there, it comes only with the modernity. So, political parties in that sense is a modern institution, which play a very significant role in modern democracy, in the functioning of the modern democracy. Um, it functions as a mediating link between state government on the one hand and citizens and society on the other. So, the main function in that sense of a political party is that it operates or it functions as a link between the government on the one hand and the society on the other. It tends to influence the decision and politics of the government or the state, keeping in mind the demands and the aspiration of the citizen. So, parties tries to mobilize the people or the society along certain issue which concerns them, and it tries to represent their interest and their concern while it comes to policy formulation by the state and the party which is ruling in the state. So, political parties in that sense are distinct from other groups and associations in the society. This we have also discussed that how for instance, pressure groups and many other associations that exist in the society and also claim to represent the interest of its member. From that kind of civil society institution or association, political parties are different in a sense that it not just mobilize the interest or the aspiration of the people, but also tries to contest the election, and by contesting the election the main quest for the political party is to win the election to form the power. So, political parties in that sense are different from pressure groups or other associations in the society which strive to fulfill the interest of its member, but nonetheless do not participate in the electoral politics. On the other hand, the political parties are always mobilizing the public opinion or orienting its activities and campaign towards fighting and winning the election. So, in that sense political parties remain distinct from other groups and association in the society. Political party can be democratic or autocratic, and that nature of political parties play a very significant role in the politics, whether the politics in the state or the country is democratic or undemocratic, whether it is trying to modernize the society or not, largely depends on the nature of the political parties. If it is democratic, it helps immensely in the democratization and modernization of the society and the state institution, whereas if a party is conservative or traditional and undemocratic in its functioning, it tend to accordingly change the nature and the functioning of the state and society as well. So, the nature and the way party operates determines the nature and the characteristic of democracy and modernization in a society. Party operates within a party system which could be of various types. We have also seen that how the existence of other parties in a political system together constitute a party system, and the party system to a great extent determines the functioning of individual political parties. So, there are broadly speaking three kinds of political party system. One party system where there is only one party which contests the election and form the government, that is basically the party states and so on. Then there are many countries, particularly in the advanced democracies, where exist two party or bipolar system, where power usually alternate between one of the two. In India also, at least at the state level, we see the emergence of bipolar contestation. At the national level, of course, such contestation is between two bloc or the two coalition group led by Congress and BJP, NDA and UPA, but India remains exception to this kind of bipolarity that exists, for instance, say in UK. or in US, where the two party alternate the power or form the government alternatively. Then there are multi-party system where exist more than two party, and India during 1980s and 90s and even early 2000 characterized that model of party system, where there was different parties at the national or regional level, and they were competing for the power or for the winning election. And then there is also a system where there may exist many parties, but that system is dominated by one party. So, India, for instance, first 2 decades after the independence was a system where there was multi-party with one party domination. So, such model of party system are called one party dominant system. So, these are some of the models of party system where India falls somewhere in between multi-party system with one party dominance. Again, in this most recent phase of party system in India, where BJP is acquiring the space which was once occupied by the Congress. However, the difference in the contemporary phase of party system in India is in the first decades, Congress used to rule both the center and the state, and it was dominating party both in the center and the state. But in contemporary times, besides the BJP, there is Congress party and other national parties at the national level, and also in different states there are very strong and effective regional parties. Indian party system is thus a dynamic system with the existence of multi parties representing the spectrum of ideology from extreme left to extreme right. So, we have discussed that how Indian party system is represented by the parties which are from the extreme left of the ideological spectrum to the extreme right. So, from the Communist Party ML, that is Marxist and Leninist, to Shiromani Akali Dal, Shiv Sena and the BJP to the extreme right, and many socialist, Janata Party and Congress in between, represents a range of political ideology in the Indian party system. And many political parties are also based on social cleavages such as caste, class, region, religion, language and ethnicity in society. And we have seen that how certain parties claims explicitly to represent the interest of a particular section, even when they try to associate with the bigger ideologies such as socialism or social justice. In terms of their social base, they represent the interest of a very specific or the particular segment of Indian society, be it on the basis of caste or language or religion, and at times region such as Telangana Rashtra Samiti or Assam Gan Parishad in Assam. So, political parties, besides representing the whole range of ideology from left to the right, are also social cleavages based parties, and these parties remain key link between the citizen and the government, and they constantly interact or engage in terms of representing the aspiration and interest of the citizen before the government or the party which is in power. There are, broadly speaking, 2 methods of understanding political parties in India. One is political systemic theory, which focuses on the structure of the polity, for example, federal or unitary, an electoral process such as first past the post system or the propositional representation system. This nature of the polity, federal or unitary or the electoral system, whether it is first past the post system or the propositional representation system condition the nature and the functioning of party system in India. So, if we look at the evolution of party system in India, when there is a strong central government, and there are the chances of national parties dominating the politics in the country. Whereas, when there is the coalition government or there is the role of stronger state parties, there are the emergence or more benefit in associating with the regional parties. And in India, we have seen these phases where when the national parties or the union government was important, national parties played a decisive role, and when there is the coalition partner of different regional or state parties, regional party dominated the politics and political discourse both in the states and also in the center. This trend is again reversing after the winning of the BJP in the recent general elections, where again the national parties and the premium associated with the national parties are increasing. So, in other words, the nature or the characteristic and the functioning of political parties and party system to a great extent determined by the nature of the polity and the electoral system that a country has. The other method of understanding political party is social cleavages theory, which postulates that the nature and characteristic of political parties reflect the social cleavages that exist in a society. On the basis of caste, class, language, religion, ethnicity and ideological lines, parties are also formed and they represent such social cleavages that exist in the society. So, basically these two theories or approach help us understand the nature or the functioning of political parties in any society: political systemic theory and the social cleavages theory. Duverger has argued that first past the post system, where in India we have such a system of election, tend to result in the two-party system. That means, where there is a electoral system which is based on first past the post system, those political system tend to result in two-party system gradually or eventually. However, India seems to defy this rule at least until 2 decades after the independence, where both at the center and at the state it was the Congress party which was the dominant or the hegemonic party in India. Nonetheless, Duverger is partially true, as with the growth and transition of party system in India, we see a more fragmented multi-party system at the national level, but a consolidated bipartisan or bipolar party system at the state level. This trend started to unfold since 1970s at the state level, where at the national level there is the fragmented multi-party system. One could also argue that there are clear consolidation even at the national level if you look at the two blocks NDA and UPA, which is led by BJP and Indian National Congress respectively. So, there are trend towards this bipolarization. However, there are many regional parties or state party which present India or characterize Indian party system as a multi-party system rather than bipolar or two-party system. In this course, we have discussed some of these following themes, which I would like to recall or recapitulate here. That is, we started with understanding political parties and party system, how to understand parties and what are different kind of party system, what are the method and approaches to understand those party system. We have also discussed the link between party system and democracy. Particularly, we focused on the party system in India and its evolution in different phases. We have also discussed different kinds of political parties and recognition of political parties by the Election Commission of India. So, whether a party is a national party or a state party is recognized by the Election Commission of India on the basis of their electoral performance. We have also studied different types of national and regional parties in India, like Indian National Congress or Bharatiya Janata Party, many parties from Janata Parivar like Janata Dal Secular or Janata Dal United, Rashtriya Janata Dal or Samajwadi Party. We also discussed many left parties, particularly Communist Party of India and the Communist Party of India Marxist. Then we have also studied many social cleavages parties or the regional parties such as Shiromani Akali Dal or Shiv Sena, other national parties like Bahujan Samaj Party or NCP and All India Trinamool Congress, NCP and Trinamool Congress becoming the splinter or formed after the split in the Congress in late 90s, 1908 and so on. We have also discussed regional parties like DMK, AIA DMK, Assam Gan Parishad and Telangana Rashtra Samiti. Then we also studied the role and the relevance of political ideology such as the principle of nationalism, secularism, socialism, Hindu nationalism and communism. So, how these ideologies are important in shaping the nature and the characteristic of political parties and their relevance in their pragmatic politics when there is a openness or flexibility among the parties to align with parties from other ideology or to leaders or the candidates moving from one political ideology to other political ideology oriented parties. So, we have also discussed this relevance of political ideology with a turn towards pragmatic politics, where ideology becomes less and less an issue in terms of forming the alliance or moving from one party to the other for the many candidates and leaders, and how the winnability and the political compromise is something that characterize the distribution of the seats and also the ability of different political parties to align with different blocks. So, finally, we discussed then the shift that is taking place in almost all the political parties from the ideology to the personality or dynasty. So, rise of family or the personality cult, and how there are party which is leader oriented, that means one leader or one family taking most of the decision at the cost of the organizational structure and the ideology of political parties. So, these are some of the things which we have also discussed in this course, and then we studied the major challenges and the criticism that political parties in India are facing, such as lack of inner party or intra party democracy, or rule of dynasty or one family, the caste, religion and ethnicity based political parties and their inherent limitation in expanding their social base or to mobilize the larger social segments in support of their policies or to improve their electoral prospect and so on. We also discussed this difference in terms of the issue that confronts national parties and regional or state parties in India. And finally, in the previous lecture, that was 19th lecture in this course, we discussed about reforming the Indian parties in terms of party funding, transparency, election for the party positions, inner and inter party democracy, election for the party post and various legal or the institutional framework to implement those reforms in the parties. And we have also studied how reform of the political party will be a long or slow process that depends on the reforms in the larger society and change in the preference among the electorates as well. So, it is not just the responsibility or the obligation of the party and the political leaders to reform themselves. Of course, they are expected to function in a democratic manner, but also electorates needs to be aware of certain practices or their acceptability or unacceptability will go a long way in changing the functioning or the style of party organization and leadership in different political party. For instance, the issue of corruption or the issue of criminal politicians with criminal backgrounds in the politics are often highlighted in the Indian media, or many individuals would like to see politics which would be corruption free or which bar or restrict the candidates from the criminal background to enter into the politics. However, in terms of election, when the electorates elect them, that gives the party an excuse or a reason to give tickets to those candidates who have some winnability or acceptability among the electorates. So, unless the electorates change the preference, it will be difficult to reform the political parties and to make them more democratic or more transparent and accountable to the people. So, some of these things which we have discussed in the previous lecture on reforming the political party, which cannot be done by the party itself or a legal institutional framework, but it requires change or reform in the larger social structure as well, particularly among the preference of the electorates. So, I hope after examining or understanding some of these key themes that we have discussed, it helps us understand the nature and the types of political parties and party system in India, from national parties to regional parties, the way they operates, the domination of one party or one family or dynasty, its evolution from one party dominant system to multi-party system. So, after engaging with those themes, I hope some of you are aware of these changing nature of party system and different types of political parties and evolution of party system in India. To understand the evolution, contribution and major characteristic of political parties in India in terms of their social support base, ideology, major policy programs and the leadership. I hope it also help you to understand the major shifts and the transformations in Indian parties and party system, where there is the dominance of say national parties in a particular phase, and there is a coalition phase where the regional parties, then the state parties play a very important role in the formation of national government as well, and that also changed the characteristic of party system from one party dominant system to a multi-party vibrant system. It also, I hope, help to understand the major challenges before the political parties and party system in India and the ways and means to reform such challenges or resolve such challenges that is there before the political parties in India. And Indian democracy even more inclusive and participative, and this reform in political parties are absolutely necessary to understand or to make Indian democracy more inclusive and participative. And finally, I hope this course help you to understand the link between Indian democracy and the functioning of political parties. So, often in the general political discourse, people talk less about the nature or the functioning of political parties when they talk about say the functioning of a state institution, whether that functioning is democratic or undemocratic, but they do not talk so much about the political parties and their functioning. And in this course, I hope you understand how the democracy in the state and the society is linked to the democratization of the party system in India, and therefore, the stress on reforming the political parties, making them more democratic internally and transparent and accountable is absolutely necessary for the overall growth and success of Indian democracy. So, I hope you understand the link that exists between the political parties and Indian democracy as a whole. If you talk about Indian political parties and party system, at present the number of recognized state parties in India are 64 and national parties are 8, and there have been phenomenal growth of political parties from 764 in 2004 to 2425 in 2019. So, this shows the constant formation of newer parties, and this also create the problem where Election Commission of India is arguing that many of these parties are registered, but do not contest the election, and if that is the case for the longer period of time, Election Commission of India should have the right to deregister those parties. However, at present there is a constant growth which have been unprecedented in the last 15 years, where it has seen threefold rise in the number of political parties in India. These are largely due to of course, the registered but unrecognized political parties, which is registered with the Election Commission of India, but do not play or do not contest election either at the state or at the national level. So, the number of state and national parties remain more or less stable. The national parties, their number vary in the recent decades from 6 to 8, but the state parties also are more or less stable, where there is the constant formation, split, merger and so on, but their number also remain more or less stable. In comparison to that, the registered political parties have seen unprecedented growth in the recent decades. If you talk about the different phase of Indian political parties or party system in India, for the purpose of understanding, we can divide the evolution of party system into 4 phases, where in the first phase, that was 1952 to 1967, it is called the Congress system because of its dominance both at the national level and the central level. In the second phase of party system, which we can classify between 1967 to 1989, there is a kind of bipolarization of the state party system. So, at different state there emerge a bipolar contest or the contest between the two party since 1970s. The third phase of Indian party system is characterized by the pattern of fragmentation and the growth of multi-party system between 1989 to 2014, and this fragmentation was the result of particularly the fragmentation of Janata Parivar or Janata Party, and also Indian National Congress, where All India Trinamool Congress or Nationalist Congress Party was formed in late 90s. And the fourth phase we can classify since 2014 with the revival of one party domination and hegemonic status of the BJP. So, broadly speaking, we can categorize the growth of or the evolution of party system in India into these 4 phases from 1952 to the most recent development since 2014. Similarly, we can discuss the formation and evolution of political parties in putting them together in the following 6 clusters. So, there are parties which shares the ideology, policies and programs more or less similar to the Congress party. So, we can classify them in the Congress family, such as the parties like Trinamool Congress or the NCP. And then there are BJP and Sangh Parivar, where we can classify parties like Shiv Sena or Shiromani Akali Dal, which share the ideology or the policy outlook of the BJP. Nonetheless, they have uneasy relationship, and in the recent Maharashtra election there is a growing difference between the BJP or the Shiv Sena. Nonetheless, in terms of ideology, policies and the polity framework, they can be clubbed together with the BJP and the Sangh Parivar. Then there is a Janata Parivar, which includes parties like Janata Dal United, Janata Dal Secular, Rashtriya Janata Dal, Samajwadi Party or Biju Janata Dal, which we can study together in terms of Janata Parivar, which is ideologically center or left of the center parties, deriving their inspiration from the philosophy of socialism. Bahujan Samaj Party is an exception, which is exclusively based on particular caste, and it distances itself ideologically from the extreme right, that is BJP, and also extreme left, which is the communist parties in India. And the left wing parties similarly is represented by Communist Party of India and the Communist Party of India Marxist and many other left front groups. And besides them, there is many regional parties which we have discussed, such as DMK or AIDMK in Tamil Nadu, Telangana Rashtra Samiti in Telangana, Assam Gan Parishad in Assam, and there are many other parties like PDP or in National Conference in Jammu Kashmir. So, broadly we can put different parties in these 6 clusters to understand their ideology, policies and larger position on many social political issue in India. Now, if we try to then understand the major features that these parties and party system in India exhibit over the years, we find that India has evolved from a one party dominant system to a competitive multi-party system. So, the salient feature of Indian parties and party system is their evolution from one party dominance to a competitive multi-party system. Second, there have been constant changes in the status of political parties as a national or state parties. That depends on their electoral performance, and the number of political parties are more or less stable. Number of national parties are more or less stable, but at the state level many new parties have been formed and many have disappeared altogether. So, many parties which was prominent parties in 1960s such as Swatantra Party and later many socialist parties and Janata parties also came together and disappeared from the scene altogether. So, that also characterize the nature or the evolution of Indian party system. And in the 1980s and 90s, growth of political parties, particularly regional parties, have been phenomenal. So, most of the regional parties that dominate the state politics in contemporary India are formed during these decades of 1980s and 90s. they began to play a decisive role not just in states, but also at the national level politics, particularly when there was no party winning majority on their own. So, in 1989 and again from 96 to 1908, they played a very significant role in the formation of government at the center also. However, since then they are aligning with one of the two blocs such as NDA and the UPA led by BJP and Congress respectively. So, since 1999 all these parties which remain which continue to remain the prominent player in the state politics now align with either of the two alliance which is led by BJP and the Congress. Of course, at times during the time of election you may hear about the possibility of forming a third front or the alternative to the Congress and the BJP, but their prospect is very limited in the contemporary politics and more so in the recent phase of party system where BJP has acquired a position of domination or hegemony. And the another feature of political parties in India is that they all of the major parties in India have been part of the government formation either at the state or at the national level. So, most of these parties have formed the government or have been part of the government formation either at the state or at the national level. There was a time when since 1989 no single party could achieve the parliamentary majority on its own and coalition politics was norm. However, this trend of coalition politics or the unstable or uncertain party system has been reversed in the recent decades with the rise of BJP and its expansion beyond its traditional support base. There has been frequent by and large free and fair election and peaceful transfer of power between the political parties. So, in India all the parties both at the national level and also at the state level respected the mandate of the people. So, after the emergency Indira Gandhi ensured the peaceful transfer of power to the Janata parties. Similarly, after the 3 decades of rule in West Bengal by the CPI it ensured the transfer of the power to the Trinamool Congress when it won the election in 2011. And there are numerous such examples where the transfer of power have taken place very smoothly and except for the brief period of emergency, elections have taken place in a largely free, fair and peaceful manner, and credit for such conduct of election in the free, fair manner goes to a large extent institution like Election Commission of India and those who are involved in conducting the election, but also to these political parties to respect the political to respect the mandate of the people and ensure the peaceful transfer of the power when there are other parties voted in the government. The number of independent candidates winning the election has been declining, and this is another characteristic of Indian party system. Their total number, that was 37 and 42 in 1952 and 1957 Lok Sabha election, has come down to 3 and 4 in 2014 and 2019 elections. This clearly establishes the growing importance of political parties in India. So, the probability of independent contesting or winning the election has gone down, and to win the election it is thereby necessary to contest the election as a candidate of a particular political party. So, this clearly establishes the growing significance of political parties in Indian electoral politics. Now, if we look at the political parties and Indian democracy, we see political parties are necessary link between the government and or the state and the people, and they are the political representative of the people, which tries to influence the policy making of the government by representing the voice or the concern of the people. Thus, modern democracy are incomplete without political parties and party system. So, this is true for India also. One cannot think of a party-less democracy. Of course, there were many advocates of party-less democracy such as Jayaprakash Narayan in the early decades of the independence, but now political parties have been more or less regarded as inevitable for the sustenance or the functioning of democracy, which is true in Indian case as well. So, you will hardly find even with those who are critical of the functioning of political parties, they do not support a democracy or the functioning of electoral politics without the political parties. So, political parties in that sense plays a very significant role, or it provides a mechanism, in other words, to control the power and the exercise of the power. So, in a democratic country, how power is controlled and exercised is determined by the presence or absence of political parties. It ensures greater freedom, equality and access to different sections in the decision making or the larger political process in the country. Joy Hassan has rightly argued that Indian political parties neither fit into the liberal democratic model of party system in US and Europe, nor to the India's traditional social divisions or hierarchy. So, if we try to understand Indian parties and Indian party system by following the liberal model that exists in US and Europe, we will not perhaps capture the salient feature or the functioning of Indian political parties. Similarly, if we base our understanding of Indian political party to traditional hierarchy or pattern of power relation that exist in Indian society, we will fail to understand the modernizing and democratizing ability of Indian political party, which they have exhibited in last 70 years and so. So, Indian political parties thus display numerous contradictory features, and they tend to blend or mix different forms of modern democratization and participatory politics with indigenous practices and institutions. So, many regional parties, particularly for instance, will appeal to a particular segment or a particular region on the basis of caste or language or religion. Nonetheless, they will also try to mobilize them in the larger political process of democratization and modernization in the country. On the other hand, you may also find political parties who are outright caste based political parties or region specific party, and yet they associate or claim to represent the philosophy of socialism or social justice. So, among the Indian political party, you may find the unique blend or mixing of contradictory features, where they try to use or engage with the indigenous practices and institution and align with the modern system or the practices of democratization and participation in the political system. And now, we conclude this lecture to focus on party system in India, where just to repeat, it has evolved from one party dominant system to a multi-party system, and this is the result of fragmentation of national party system, which is dominated by Congress, and among many national parties such as Janata Party or Communist Party, they have all suffered this fragmentation process. It is also characterized by the politicization of the masses and popular participation. So, gradually we have seen how the functioning or the policies of the political parties, whether it is national or regional, are also shaped or influenced by the growing awareness among the masses. Particularly, we have discussed that how in new liberal era, most of the political parties are forced to liberalize or formulate pro-business policy on the one hand, and perform for the below, that is to protect the interest of those who are poor or disadvantaged groups in the society. And also this tendency among the electorates to vote for two parties simultaneously in a state and parliamentary election. So, their awareness or the political consciousness also have influenced the functioning or the policies of the political parties in India. A rise of the OBC and the Dalit leaderships and political parties are another feature of party system in India. So, Christoph Jefferland has characterized this phenomena, particularly in North India, as a silent revolution, or what Yogendra Yadav called as the second democratic upsurge, where these political parties has provided the platform for the rise of those groups and communities in the society who were at the margin or excluded from the mainstream politics of the national party. So, 1980s and 90s, particularly in the North India, the rise of the OBC or Dalit based parties are another very significant contribution of political parties in India, which ensured within the democratic or parliamentary framework, it has broadened the representation and participation of different segments of the society, particularly those who are marginalized or excluded. Many scholars have argued that the evolution of party system in India coincide with the democratization and democratic upsurge, especially among the excluded and the marginal communities in India, and that is the single most contribution that political parties in India have made, and it has ensured the participation and representation of all segments of the society, particularly those who are marginal and the excluded. So, it has provided them voice or a stake in the larger political process, and it therefore have helped in the legitimization of democracy or political system in India. One of the defining feature of party system in India is that they reflect the social complexities and cleavages along the caste, religion, ethnicity, regional and linguistic lines. So, if we study the social base or the policies of political parties in India, we also find that besides the ideological representation, they also represent or reflect the complex nature of Indian society by organizing or orienting their policy according to the specific needs and demands of their social support base on the basis of caste, religion, ethnicity and region as well. So, we have parties which exclusively appeal to any of these social cleavages that exist in Indian society. So, this has paved the way for the growth of multi-party system in India. So, one of the reason for the rise of multi-party system in India is the social cleavages that exist in the society. So, party system in India, as we have discussed, are characterized by its different phases of evolution from one party to the multi-party, and again at present there is a shift or turn towards one party dominating the political discourse, even when there exist multiple regional parties and strong parties in different states, besides many national parties such as National Congress, which compete with the BJP at the national level. Indian political parties and party system is still evolving, and newer political formulation are still taking place, and the latest entrant in the political parties political process or party system is Aam Aadmi Party in 2013. So, it would be wrong to conclude that the party system in India and its evolution is now complete, as we see that there are new party formulation also happening as recent as in 2013. And despite its various challenges and deficiencies, political parties provide ample choice to the Indian electorates in terms of ideology, policies and programs, and they have also played an important role in ensuring that the party in power is accountable to the people, and social conflict and tensions are resolved within the parliamentary framework of discussion, accommodation and compromise. So, the political parties in India in that sense have strengthened the Indian democracy. So, this is all in this lecture today, and I hope this course have help you to better understand the nature of party system and the approaches to study them, their relationship with the democracy and the evolution of political parties and party system in India, the various challenges that they confront, and why there is a need to reform political parties and their possible implication on the functioning or the success of Indian democracy. So, for this lecture you can refer to some of these texts, which is part of other topics that we have covered in this course as well, such as Joya Hassan, Parties and Party Politics in India, K.C. Suri, Parties Under Pressure, Political Parties in India Since Independence, M.P. Singh and Rekha Divakar. These are some of these texts which you should refer to understand this lecture or many other topics that we have covered in this course. So, I hope this course has been enjoyable to you. Do write your comments and feedbacks. I will be eager and look forward to read or learn from those comments and feedbacks. I thank you for listening, and thanks for your patience. Thank you very much.